All right.
Hello from Memmingen. Hello for an exciting product introduction tonight here from Memmingen. It's 1 p.m. on the East Coast and 6 p.m. in the UK. Hello to everybody. Please let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great. Martin, how are you doing?
I'm doing great as well, and I like to show people and everyone who tuned in tonight our exciting new products, our geared head, the Kopf Squared, and
Yes.
you were one of the lucky ones who had the chance to play with it already through the recent eclipse in Arkansas, right?
Yeah, it was a dream, and we'll find out more about that when we get into the presentation.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you stick with us till the end, we have another exciting product introduction. It's not a geared head, but almost, but more if you stick with us till the end.
Yeah. Also exciting. Awesome.
So, Matt, what do you think? Should we jump right into the presentation, or should we just speak a little bit about these two analog beauties that are standing right next to me here?
I have a lot of history
with
my
old Mamiya RZ and a Sinar P3.
Yes. Yeah, I have a lot of history with those camera brands, so it makes me feel good to see them. Thank you for bringing them out.
My pleasure. Yeah. Okay,
right.
Let's jump right into it, shouldn't we?
Sure. I think we jumped ahead there. Good. Now we're here.
Exactly. So today it's all about the geared head. It's the first geared head by Novoflex. We just call it the Kopf Squared. Kopf is the German word for head. It's a geared head, and it allows photographers to control the camera in very fine and very precise movement in two different axes. Let's just move on. Here's a little agenda. Why is a geared head useful and for whom? We will speak about all the different configuration the Kopf Squared is available for you. We will have example use cases, and of course, Matt will speak about him using the head through the recent solar eclipse. And if you stick till the end, we will speak about another cool and fascinating product. So on this slide, you will see a list of photographic fields a geared head will be useful. We won't go through all of them, but we will speak about some of them in more detail throughout the entire presentation. But certainly a geared head can not only be useful in architecture photography, but in many photographic fields as well. So here are the common features of our head. We have two precision geared axes, and I will just really quickly switch my camera to a detailed camera here. You can see the geared head in more detail. We have two precision axes, as I already told you. Let's just we have a combined payload of 5 kilograms, which is a lot in photographic terms, and that's also why I chose to bring in the Mamiya RZ with the 75 millimeter shift. It's a beast of a camera. So let's switch again. We have the geared head is configurable for both left-handed and right-handed people. So if you open it here and if you open it here, you can just freely configure it to all sides. Oops, like this. Yep, like this and like this. So let's jump back to the slides. We have a fast clutch release. I will show you in more detail. So if you open this here, you can just find a camera position very, very fast, and you just close the pre-selected position with the lever again. We have selectable rotation scales. Let me just rotate this here. So these scales are zeroable. So you can decide on where to start your precise movement. We have ARCA-compatible rails on both the top and the bottom. See here, which is very helpful in adding accessories, ARCA-compatible accessories like clamps, or adding a third rotation axis, a panorama rotation to it quite easily. So if you already own like a pano rotator or a ARCA-compatible quick release unit, maybe out of the NovaFlex system or out of any ARCA-compatible system out there, maybe the Benro system, you can just add your existing components to the COF Squared quite easily. So the COF Squared is available in three different and three distinct kits. As I already told, the basic version does not come with a panel rotation or a quick release unit. So this is the solution for all the photographers out there who already own these units. But if you're not already in the system, you might be interested in the COF Squared Basic, which comes equipped with a quick release unit Q mount, and on the bottom with a pano rotator, it's the Panorama 2. It does not have increments, but it can be locked in any position. It has a spirit level 1/4 inch thread on top, and on the bottom it has 3/8 and 1/4 inch. So depending on what size, on what thread size you need on your tripod, you may just remove the silver adapter here. And the Pro Kit, the COF Squared Pro Kit, is the one that we have here in our picture. It comes pre-assembled with the Q-mount quick release unit, and at the bottom with our Panorama Q2. This Panorama Q2 is equipped with an ARCA-compatible quick release unit. And the pretty cool feature is the Pro Kit comes also with 2 of these fine adjustment handles, which you just slide onto the fine drive knobs, and which will give you even more precision for your movements. Or if you're using the COF Squared during winter with gloves and the like. Well, we already spoke about some of the features. The seriable angle scales are an interesting features that not many of the geared heads out there have incorporated into them. Matt, can you add something on the seriable angle scales? Were they helpful throughout your recent photographic adventure?
Without
photos of the eclipse.
Without a doubt, and I have a really specific example that I'm going to share a little bit later. But I found that having a zeroable scale helped me decide where I wanted to start, and then use the proper angles from there when creating panoramas or vertoramas.
Awesome. We also have 4 spirit levels. So the spirit levels are built into all the points they are necessary at. We have one here at the foot. We have one on the side. Oops. And since the COF Squared can be configured for both left and right-handed users, they have been integrated on the top and the bottom, or the bottom and the top. You can use the COF Squared both ways. So don't worry if you might find a spirit level at a position of the COF Squared where you find it unfamiliar with at first glance, but you may find it useful the moment you reconfigure the entire geared head. So let's switch to the next. The Kopf Basic is one of the 3 kits. It's as I mentioned, it's composed of 3 components. It's the Q mount. Let's switch to the detailed camera. I can show it here in more detail. It's a standard Arca compatible quick release unit, which attaches to the top just by screwing it on top, and the simple Panorama 2 panel rotator just screws into the bottom of the Kopf Squared. So it's an easy entry in very precision movement of your cameras. So let's move back to the slides. Here it is in more detail from all sides. You see the fine drive knob, the blue fine drive knobs, and the levers which aid you in for coarse adjustments. The Kopf Pro, as mentioned earlier, is pretty similar to the basic kit, with the only exception of having the panel rotator that's already equipped with an Arca compatible coupling unit, and 2 of the fine adjustment handles that just slide onto the fine drive knobs. Here it is in more detail. It's a system. Some of you who are working in macro photography might be familiar with the Castfine fine adjustment handles. The Castfine K fine adjustment handles are just a shorter version of the longer version that we also deliver for our manual focusing rails of the Castel series. Hence the name Castfine. K is the abbreviation for short, kurz or short in German. So it's just a shorter version. So but both models will work perfectly fine with your new Kopf Squared geared head. Well, example use cases. As I mentioned earlier, we will go through some of the use cases a geared head might be useful. It's not only architecture photography, but architecture photography is certainly one of the most important use cases for a geared head. Here are some examples. Our staff photographer Andreas taking a picture of an important building here in Memmingen with a Canon tilt shift lens. Then we went on, while taking the images for the product launch, we went on to a nearby church, and we were since we already make lens adapters, we had fun adapting an old Leitz-Schneider shift lens here. The geared head might also be useful in studio and repro photography. You might have never thought of this, but it's quite useful for very precise camera movements, even more so if you employ the focus stacking technique and are taking images in higher magnification factors. For example, using our Caspol Pro bellows attachment here that is attached to the stepping motor driven focus rail, the Castel Micro. It might also be useful in panorama photography. For all of you who don't want to invest in a pano rig, you can even combine 2 or 3 images. We're using here a Fujifilm shift lens, and later combine the images of this medieval castle in post to create this breathtaking image, which also boosts higher resolution, of course. So if you want to print big, it's also an interesting feature of a geared head. Macro photography, of course. I mean, macro photography is a niche in photography, but we offer a lot of useful products in macro photography, not only focusing rails and stepping motor driven rails, but also bellows and reversing rings. And the geared head offers the precision needed in macro photography, because the depth of field in macro photography, as you are aware of, becomes very shallow. So you need very fine movement in addition to the movement of your focusing rail. So this is an image out of your studio, isn't it, Matt?
It certainly is, and we're going to show this live in a little bit. But this is
that's awesome.
Just the primer on this one is, it's the one of the wonderful things about this head that I discovered is it's not necessarily about what its load capacity is. It might be the awkwardness of what you put on top. And I say awkward by, well, when you put a 150 millimeter macro lens on a fully extended bellows on a focusing rail, everything gets a little like long and a little bit off center of where you're using your head. And we'll see what that looks like through the camera live. But it made what used to be a really frustrating process to try and really get to the micromillimeter, the things in the field of view that I wanted. It made it
becomes repeatable, right?
Yeah, it became so easy to iterate and shift and do things smoothly and efficiently.
Awesome. Yeah. That's an impressive contraption you have there.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
We also brought in some pictures that our good friend Robert Thompson sent us from Northern Ireland.
Hi, Robert.
Hello, Robert. He's an impressive macro photographer. He has a huge archive of amazing macro images, and I thought I should bring at least one of his images into this presentation. And if you look closely, Robert was testing a prototype of our new geared head. So that's a prototype that you're seeing here in his images. That's another example that we shot while doing the images for the product launch. It's very close to our office, actually. We were employing our Kestrel M rail. That's quite interesting for all the people doing focus stacking with manual lenses. And in this image, I think we will have the Laowa 25 millimeter lens.
All right.
And of course, taking photos of the total solar eclipse in Arkansas just recently is what Matt did. And Matt, would you want to take over and tell people a little bit about your findings on our new geared head?
Sure, I'd love to.
Thank you.
As we traveled to Arkansas, I had the head, and I had it in secret. I couldn't show it to anybody because its launch date was the day of the eclipse, which was monumentous. So, I knew what I was going to do, and I knew I was going to attempt to have 3 different camera setups. So what I wanted to do with the COP squared was either to do a long lens follow with the 250 millimeter telescope, or to make a Vertorama. So I vowed to test. The one picture that you see here was not shot with a COP 2, but it was shot with a Pro 75, and we'll talk about that at the end. So we traveled all over Arkansas looking for the best place to be in the path of totality and to practice. And one of the places we practiced was in the hotel parking lot, because we really just needed to practice photographing the sun at the time of the event. So you'll see that one of these cameras here is my Red Cat 51 250 millimeter telescope mounted on a Nikon with a solar filter. And I found that using the geared head allowed me to have that extreme angle of pointing back towards the sun with great balance that you can't do with all heads. When you do this with a ball head, your offset might be quite different. And to have the precision to really put the sun in the center of the screen was what I wanted to do. And then I decided, well, you know, the time between second contact and third contact, why don't I try and just track that through the center, and not move the camera instead of following it, because I'm going to try and do 3 things at the same time. So this is what I did, and I had this timed perfectly to take a picture with specific intervals to have enough space in between. And this was all shot in one sequence and assembled without moving anything. So this could have been one of the sequences that I was doing, but I was thinking, this is great. It worked great using the head to find the precise positioning that I wanted to do. But I realized I wouldn't have a wide field view of what was going on, meaning I wanted to show where we were with the eclipse. So I moved on, and I was thinking about what I wanted to do for my wide field view. And then I asked myself the question, can I use this for tiny planet panoramas? So while we were in downtown in Hot Springs, Arkansas, which is a national park, this is just outside of the national park office, the Fordyce Bathhouse. So I made exposures. I made the 6 exposures to make a tiny planet with a fisheye, and it worked out great. I was expecting, because I wasn't using a nodal rail, to experience some parallax, especially with these strong architectural lines, but I experienced no parallax, which I found really surprising. And so you could see the camera, when it's tilted back, is definitely not on the no parallax point. So that was a surprise, and it made shooting those tiny planet exposures with a fisheye really, really simple. So I had a lot of fun with that. So that's something that's going to stay in my bag of tricks, is being able to shoot them with that when I need to, when I don't have my pano rig around.
Impressive.
Thanks. So when it came time to be the day of the eclipse, we had scouted the day before, and then we were there the morning of, and using PhotoPills, I established that first contact started above 60 degrees and last contact ended at 52 degrees. And that was my field of view. And you could see my telescope and my wide lens, which is on the geared head on the left. So I really wanted to use a 24 millimeter lens horizontally and shoot a vertorama of 4 panels. So you can see on the right-hand panel here, that's what I did. I set it up so that I could have the sun passing through, holding at that position the whole time. And I tilted it back, and I made sure that I was in the right place, and the sun would be in the right place also. And then I calculated, and this is where the adjustable zero comes in. Once I found that perfect position where I knew the sun was going to come into view on the left side and exit on the right side, I set the scale to 0 on that tilt angle. And then I went into PhotoPills and saw that my field of view is going to be 52.5. I think I put this wrong here. So the vertical angle of view is actually 52.5, not 73 wide. So cutting that in half would be about 25 degrees. Ignore my silly math on screen here. So I went down 25 degrees each time. I was trying to recreate what I did at the time. There was so much math going through my head that day. So I went down 25 degrees each time on the scale, and it was really easy. And I repeated this process 3 times. I shot 1 vertorama prior to first contact, 1 during totality, that's in the center, and 1 after last contact. So I wanted...
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is that a term that you coined, vertorama?
I don't believe I coined the term. I believe I picked it up from somebody else. I don't recall where. I just heard somebody else call it a tiltorama, which also works.
Okay.
Because if you're panning left and right, you're tilting up and down. But whatever.
Right.
Vertorama is what I've been using pretty commonly these days.
Okay,
So
fair enough.
So vertorama, I stitched these 3, but the totality image is the best image, in my opinion, because it shows the light as it actually was then. And I shot, I think, 5 frame HDRs for each of the 4 positions. So I made these 3 vertoramas with HDRs, and it was 5 times, it was 20 pictures for each of these, stitched in PT GUI later. And then I also left that top panel facing straight up, and here's the sequence. I believe this was every 3 minutes or 4 minutes. I forgot what the interval was. We have 55 partial images from first contact to fourth contact, plus one totality in the middle, and you put them all together and you get that image on the right, which shows the light that actually occurred during totality plus the entire path of the eclipse. So putting all that stuff together, why should you care? Well, because it made for a really easy way for me to trust that I always had the same repeatable frames, so that when I moved my camera during totality, that when I brought it back up to zero afterwards, all of the rest of the images from third contact to fourth contact were in the right place. So I moved it back to zero after I made that 4-frame Vertorama and finished the rest of my sequence for the time lapse, and I was done. And I could work on the other things I was working on, like making sure my 350 millimeter telescope was tracking correctly, and I made all of those exposures correctly. And I also made a tiny planet during totality. So running 3 cameras was ambitious during the solar eclipse. And this is where it all ties together. The geared head allowed me to have the confidence to make a Vertorama during totality and also shoot all the proper exposures on my long lens and sneak in enough time to shoot a self-portrait, which I didn't intend to do, but a tiny planet during totality. So I got all of those things done because this head allowed me to have the confidence to do it, in addition to those other tasks that I was used to doing. And there's a couple of shots from the long lens shots that were tracked on my TrioPod Pro 75 with the Benro Polaris on the top. And the tiny planet was shot with my Triobow with the VR Pro 2 HD and my fisheye lens. So that I banged out really quick, and thousands of images from this one. So we got through all of that. And here's a composite that I made of Earthshine on the moon with a whole bunch of shots from totality, and a star shot that was from the previous 2 nights ago in Buffalo River, but pointing in the same direction. So I got a lot of work done in a very short amount of time, and I got to count on my gear. And that's really the end of the story here.
Impressive. Thanks, Matt.
My pleasure.
Thanks for giving us a little background on how to best use the COF Squared geared head in your type of photography. Thank you very much. That was very insightful.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for making great stuff.
Oh, pleasure. Okay, let's move on. As I mentioned during the introduction, we have another interesting product to show. It's we call it the Cube. It's a cube, as you probably similar to some products that you already know. But I will switch cameras here. It's also a modular system, and I will show you in a second what I mean by modular system. It's for all photographers who don't need the huge adjustment range of the geared head. It's for all photographers who want to adjust heavy gear. That's also the reason I brought this big Cynar P3 with me, and both of the cubes that we have stacked on top of each other and combined with this panel rotator here are controlled by rack and pinion, basically, and they have total adjustment range of 15 degrees to either side. And as I mentioned earlier, you can stack them atop. So if, for example, you don't need the precise movement in 2 different axes, you might just use one of these and combine it with the panel rotator on top, or you can stack them atop each other. Let's switch to the slides again and go into a little detail. As I mentioned, a fine drive, stackable. The position and the adjustment is lockable with the help of this little wheel here. So if you adjust position and you tighten this little wheel here, the position is locked in place. You have a 15-degree angle scales. You have upper and lower brackets that are Arca compatible, and let me just bring in another cube to the scene and switch cameras again, and I will show you what that means. So the cube is Arca compatible on the top and has a square Arca foot on the bottom. So you can just combine them like this if you need precise movement in two different directional axes, or you can even combine them parallel. So you have several options. So if you have very heavy gear that you need to adjust, and you don't need the huge adjustment range of the Kopf squared geared head, the NovoFlex Cube might be something to look into. Let's jump back into our slides. So like the Kopf squared, also the Cube is available in 3 distinct kits. So you can buy a cube by itself. You can buy it in a duo kit if you want, or if you need the 2 different axes. And yet again, you can also purchase a Pro kit. The Pro kit is the one that we showed in more detail underneath my trusty Cynar P3 here. It's composed of 2 cubes and the new Pano rotator Panorama QC, which features an Arca compatible foot at the bottom, and as such can be clamped and can also be put underneath the bottom cube if you want the rotation to sit on the bottom. Well, as I mentioned, it has a higher load capacity than the 5 kilos of the Kopf squared. It has a modular design. As I already mentioned, it is stackable. It can be used individually, and of course it's part of a system, and thanks to the Arca compatibility on both the top and the bottom, you might even combine it with a focusing rail. You might want to combine it in repro photography on a copy stand, for example. And let's jump into some of the examples here. For example, here we've used it in macro photography, just 1 cube in combination with a Pano rotator and a bellows setup. We also used it in architecture photography. We've combined 2 cubes atop each other and added the Pano rotator, a bellows, a Bulpro TS bellows on top, and a 65mm Mamiya RZ lens, and a Fujifilm GFX in the back. And as I mentioned before, it might be helpful in repro photography on a copy stand. We combined it here with, it's yet again just 1 cube and a Pano rotator and a bellows on top to take pictures of, let's say, flat originals, repro photography. We used our 90mm Schneider Pyrite lens here. And well, yet again, as mentioned so many times before, it's part of a system. Matt, do you want to add something to it? I mean, you've combined it with so many different components out of our building block system.
Well,
I mean, the Kopf, and like the Kopf, the Cube is part of a system. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I used it as I received it, which was the Pro version, until the demonstration that I'm going to give you guys in a couple of minutes, where I removed the Pano rotator from the bottom and inserted into a quick release clamp that was waiting for it. So I understand, after using NovoFlex for years now, that it's ready to adapt to my needs, and that's really the most important thing to take away here.
And it will grow with you. Yeah, it will grow.
Yep.
So the moment you add a new component, one component becomes a solution for yet another photographic task or problem.
Exactly. It has a multiplicative effect in that if you bought something that had a single use for a single task, you can only use it for that. More often than not, when I get something from NovoFlex, it can be combined in creative ways that I hadn't the foresight to think of yet until the need came up. And that's very reassuring.
Thank you. Oh, it's demo time.
Demo time.
Matt, I understand you've built up a setup and you want to give our viewers a look right through the viewfinder of your camera.
Sure. So I'm going to show you the side view first. This is what we're going to be looking at, and I'm going to end up having this as an inset in the other side. So you're gonna see this as a small image through the other thing, which is going to be here. So now you're going to see the camera in the upper left hand, and what you're seeing now is through my Z8. I'm going to walk over there and just talk a little bit.
Could you jump right back into the main picture?
You want to see this for a second?
Yeah, maybe we can just tell people what that contraption of yours is composed of.
Oh yeah, let me talk about it.
Sorry about that.
So this is this is the MS Macro Repro on the bottom, and that's what I use to control the objects that I want to photograph. I have the steel plate attached to it. That's the white board that you see. That's the back side of the steel plate. The other side has graduated markings on it. I have
because it's magnetic, right?
Yeah, and I have a magnet attached, a high Gauss magnet, and then there's a petri dish, and then there's some ferrofluid there, and then on the bendy gooseneck arms I have some lights, and then attached to the MS Macro Repro, right above that is the Kopf squared head, and above that is the focusing rail, and above that is the bellows, and on front of that, and that has the electronic connections so that I can connect the IRIX 150 millimeter macro lens, which I hadn't used in a while, but I thought was ideal for this because, like I said before, it's not how heavy this system is, it's how long it is and how every movement transmits vibration throughout the system, and it gets dampened really quickly despite being so far away from the origin, the bottom where it clamps. So that's what I wanted to show you guys. So we'll look through the camera now, and we have the inset here, and I'm going to turn on the microphone over there, and I'll walk over. So here we are. You guys can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay, good.
We can hear you.
Perfect. So over here on the side, you'll see that this is the tilt, and I have the cast fine K on this right now when I tightened it down, so I can't pull it off, but it has double the gear ratio because we have the cast fine K on there. So if I wanted to tilt side to side to finally position this, it's very easy. And if I wanted to tilt forward and back, it's very easy to do that also. And I also have a perpendicular focusing rail here, so I could slide side to side in addition to tilting. So with my right hand, I'm using the perpendicular focusing rail that's going this way, and there's a focusing rail going this way. So I can really, by combining all of these things, we say it's a system, right? Really focus in on finding exactly what I want to get with precision, and make sure that I'm filling the frame with the things that I find most interesting. And that would be it right there. And then I focus, and then I let it subside and take my picture. So I spent a lot of time having fun with this, and I just wanted you guys to see how it works for me.
Do you know what magnification you're working at right now?
A lot.
A lot.
No,
okay.
I don't. No,
Okay.
No, but what I found, and I hope that even that short demo that people can see that it's the thing that frustrates me the most about macro is positioning, putting the things in the frame that I want, and focusing rails get you a lot closer, and focusing rails in different axes get you a little closer, but it never solved the XYZ tilt issue that ball heads couldn't solve, and this solves it. So I'm thrilled to be using this now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I think it's Q&A time, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah. The first one I see is
Oh,
uh,
sorry.
is the load the main reason I would use the cube versus the Kopf squared?
Uh, well, it's certainly one of the important reasons, but not the only one. The other one being that the cube has a limited adjustment range of 15 degrees to either side. So if you don't need the huge adjustment range that the Kopf squared offers, which is 90 degrees or even 90 degrees to either side, so it's 180 and even bigger, even more than that, then the cube might be a solution to look into.
Okay. And there's, I might add that there's a difference to how they move too. One of them moves laterally and one of them moves asymmetrically. Is that the correct term for it?
That is correct, but since it's a modular system, you can combine them
Sure.
like you want. You don't have to just mount them offset to each other.
Right, but the cube itself is like almost a yaw free. Remembering my days at CNR, like that sort of yaw free base sort of movement.
Exactly.
Some center point above it is where it's performing its function rather than tilting below where you are. So
correct. So what else? Harut. May I say the Kopf squared is made of two identical parts linked by a half cube triangular thing in between? Well, that is correct. Yeah, that's what it is. And this construction made it possible to have the Kopf squared to be used by people who are left-handed or right-handed. That's how easy you adjust the Kopf to your individual needs.
I'm sure that you refrained from patting yourself on the back, so I'm going to pat you on the back. It's beautiful. It's beautiful engineering, and it's really smart that you can use symmetrical components to build something like that.
Thank you very much.
When I first saw it, I just appreciated how beautifully it was constructed, and then I used it, and I said, not only is it beautiful, but it's deeply functional too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And versatile. And the one thing that we didn't show people is, and I have mine set up right now, when you pack it up, it doesn't need to remain in that sort of cubey shape. You can turn
let me show
into
people
one flat plane.
Yep. So it's quite easy if you pack it up.
Look at that.
It's completely flat.
Yeah.
That's its shape.
So you can fit it into spots in your bag that you wouldn't be able to fit other geared heads. If you compared this to other geared heads, they're gigantic. They're huge. They're monstrous, right? This is so compact and elegant and precise. I don't think there's much else that could be compared to it. It's in a class of its own.
So what else? Brenda, after seeing that high magnification application, I get it now much easier to make fine movements at the high magnification. Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Wow. I don't see any other questions coming in right now. I think overall it seems like the sentiment in the chat is very positive. We'd like to hear from you how you're feeling about it. We did see a lot of thumbs up and hearts and cheers during the presentation. We appreciate that. Thanks for the signals. And one of the things that if you're watching this on the replay, if you weren't lucky enough to catch it live, let us know in the chat. Or if you have questions, you can send those questions to, let's see, we have it here, webinar@novaflex.com. So there's always a way to get in touch with us. If this didn't cover those things that you are looking for, we'd be happy to reply to you and let you know. Or if you're getting an email because you signed up for this webinar, or if you're on YouTube, leave a comment or hit reply to that email.
Well, that leaves almost nothing for me to add.
Oh, I'm sorry,
thanks for
Martin.
tuning in. Thanks for being interested in cool gear out of Memmingen, Germany. We appreciate your being here. We appreciate your time. And if you have questions, let us know in the comments section on YouTube. And well, thanks for tuning in, and good night.
Martin, thanks again for hitting another home run. You guys really, really did an extraordinary thing with this one. I just personally thank you. It's I'm in love. So everybody who came, we appreciate you. And we'll see you in the chat or in the comments. Have a great day.
Bye.